near mint condition, the home of collected edition.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. The day has finally arrived. That's right, all you mentees. The book that you all voted for Marvel to make is finally here. So here it is, my advanced look at the X-Men Extinction Agenda Omnibus from Marvel Comics. So let's go ahead and take a look at this together. Before getting started, a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us an advance copy of this omnibus. This omnibus is due out in the direct market and book market on October 29th or 30th, depending on where you get your books. And the first thing I want to go ahead and say is what we're looking at here is the standard edition cover. This is the one from X Factor 62, the end of the Extinction Agenda crossover, and of course supplied by Jim Lee. On the left-hand side is your direct market cover, and that is also supplied by Jim Lee, and of course featuring a different spine picture, but underneath the dust jacket, everything is exactly the same. That one is based on the Wanted poster from the House ad, but they did replace Cable with the Jim Lee Cyclops from his ongoing series, and it actually explains where they got the pictures from inside the omnibus. Since I mentioned that everything underneath the dust jacket is the same, I want to go ahead while I have it on and tell you where I'm going to put it. So it really belongs here, in between X-Men by Chris Claremont and Jim Lee, volumes 1 and 2, because that's where these two books belong. The Extinction Agenda and the X-Men Days of Future Past, both of them being oversized hardcovers. But this is where it fits in case you didn't have those. And those have been out of print for a number of years. So on the poll a couple of years ago, I asked Marvel if it was possible to combine a couple of hardcovers, because we've been doing it before with things like The Fall of the Mutants, the Inferno Prologue, and Inferno. Those were originally released as oversized hardcovers, and then Marvel, when they reprinted them, made them into Omnis. And I figured, hey, it's worth a shot to ask, and sure enough, you all voted for it, Marvel listened, and here we are with the Extinction Agenda Omnibus. It makes me so damn proud of every one of you all that voted for this and just the community that we have built. It's insane to think about how far we've come. So, yes, this is one of my favorite covers. This is from the ending of the Extinction Agenda. Let's look at the spine again. Interesting choice to show the bald grown-up Storm there. And X-Men Extinction Agenda Marvel Omnibus. And then, of course, the back of the book, Genosha wages war on the X-Men. But there's so much more collected in here. So much more than these two hardcovers. And if you're thinking, wait a minute, Omar, Days of Future Past hardcover does have the Days of Future Past, which was previously collected, of course, in Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 2. And the Wolverine Days of Future Past miniseries, well, that's going to be collected in Wolverine Omnibus Volume 6. So worry not. Now, the introduction to Genosha from those issues in 230 is not collected in this omnibus because in the chronological order of X-Men, those particular, Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty One Day, those particular stories have been collected in the pages of the Inferno Prologue omnibus. So what you're really getting here is the chronological order in a big format. I love that they thought a lot about this book, including all those Marvel Comics Presents books. So let's actually finally get this out of the dust jacket. All right, here's the dust jacket. Targeted for Extinction, piece right there by Rob Liefeld, the creators. Chris Claremont, Fabian Nicieza, Luis Simonson, John Bogdanove, Jim Lee, and Dave Cockrum. Yes, for the first time we're getting Spotlight, or X-Men Spotlight Starjammers. And then this piece right here of a young Storm. Why is she young? I'll explain everything when we look inside the book. With Jean Grey from X Factor. Talking about how much they've missed. Oh, you know, they were sisters once and all that was built up from the classic X-Men comics. But we're going to go ahead and crack this book open, talk about the stories found in here, and I'll let you know if I'm going to go into any kind of spoiler territory, of course. Look at all the extras and see what those Marvel Comics Present issues are. All right, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. Look at the end sheets here, and then this amazing title page by Jim Lee. Oh, I love it, the reunion that happens through here. Oh, it's so good. All right. Here are all the credits. Walter Simonson, Louise Simonson, Chris Claremont, Fabian Nicieza, Ann Nishenti, Howard Mackey, Scott Lobdell, Roy Thomas, and Bob Harris, and Len Kaminsky, just to name a few of the writers. And then your pencilers here: Butch Guys, Terry Schumacher, Arthur Adams, John Bogdanove, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Mark Bagley, Tom Rainey, and Larry Dixon, Don Heck, just to name a few of the pencilers. Over here, a few of the inkers like Jeff Isherwood, Scott Williams, Al Milgram, Art Thibert, and Dan Panosian, Pete Craig Russell. Oh my gosh, Alfredo Alcala. There's so many good inkers here. Dave Cockrum, who inks... Anyway, colorists over here: Richard Rausch and Brad Vancata and Glennis Oliver, Tom Vincent, Andy Yankees, and John Wilcox, Michael Higgins. Your letterers over here: Rick Parker, Joe Rosen, and then, of course, the editors at the time. Your table of contents, where you're going to find each and every one of these issues, where they originated from, and, of course, the date they were published. And this is the type of pattern that you're going to see throughout here. Like, you're going to see the actual comics within the box here of this frame, the actual covers. Now, what is collected in here? So collected in here is Uncanny X-Men 270 to 272, New Mutants 95 to 97, X-Factor 60 to 62, X-Men Annual 14 and 15, X-Men Spotlight on the Starjammers 1 and 2, and then material from Fantastic Four, Annual 23, New Mutants, Annual 6 and 7, X-Factor, Annuals 5 and 6, New Warriors, Annual number 1, Marvel Comics presents 10 through 17, 24 through 32, 41, 43, and 48 through 49. Marvel Superheroes 2 and 6 through 8, Marvel Holiday Special number 1, and Marvel Tales number 262. This book has 984 pages and retails for $125. So we kick it off with the Days of Future Present storyline. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Spoilers for the pitch of these particular stories. I can't help it. It's X-Men. Apologies ahead of time. All right. Days of Future Present. It is a follow-up to Days of Future Past. This time around, however, we see the character of Franklin Richards, an older character, come from the future to try to find Rachel Summers. Rachel, during this time, was part of Excalibur, but there were no Excalibur annuals. But if there were, it would have been part of this crossover. But we start with the first appearance of the nemesis of this particular story, and that is Ahab. He makes his first appearance in this annual right here. He even makes it on the cover. And we have Terry Schumacher doing this particular issue right here. And I always wanted to see more of Banshee's X-Men from the future. So Franklin Richards is a part of this future X-Men team. And you have characters in here like Blaze and, of course, Magus, which is a mix between Doug Ramsey and Warlock, or rather Magus. You have Cudgel, I think is the character's name. This blue lady right there, that's not Nocturne. She's not the same character from the Exiles. I wish that she had been, but I always wanted to see more of Banshee's future X-Men. And later on, of course, he went on to be the teacher for Generation X. So this is the story where Franklin Richards comes from the future, trying to reunite with Rachel, who is now part of Excalibur and has the Phoenix Force. And there's beautiful moments in here besides these horrific scenes, because Ahab's right behind him and he wants his hound back. And that is, of course, Rachel. Arthur Adams drawing this issue of Uncanny X-Men. I call this the burger omnibus because there's a couple scenes where people are eating burgers, and man, they look tasty. The way that Arthur Adams and the way Jim Lee draws them. Anyway, I love this cameo here from those characters. If you've seen RoboCop, you know who they are. And Rachel having a good moment with her mom, or who she thinks her mom is, because Rachel is the daughter of Phoenix and Cyclops. And she thinks that, Jean's her mom, and Jean's like, I'm not your mom. You're the same age I am. And she's like, no, I'm from the future. I'm a time traveler. Oh, that makes sense. Right. This is regarded as the real first appearance of Gambit, because this annual came out before issue 266 of Uncanny X-Men. You can go argue about that. I ain't here for that. I'm just kind of giving you the premise of what that crossover is. Now, what's interesting is that X-Factor, New Mutants, and the annual of Fantastic Four don't have the whole annuals collected in here, but the entire annual of Uncanny X-Men is collected in here, including the backup stories of Jubilee and the pinups. So, because this is an X-Men omnibus, they have everything from both annuals. And then we kick it off with one of my all-time favorite X-Men events. This is one of my all-time favorites, not just events, but the crossover. Oh my gosh, this reunites so many of the characters. Why Storm Young? Nanny. Everybody thought she was dead in issue 248 of Uncanny X-Men, but no, Nanny and Orphan Maker captured her and turned her young. She ran in a Gambit, and then the X-Men, of course, walked through the Siege Perilous. The world thought that the X-Men were dead because of the events of Fall of the Mutants. And then the X-Men, oh my gosh, give up, with the exception of course, Wolverine, give up. And they walk through the Siege Perilous. The Siege Perilous gives them a new life. It gives them a new start. So they can't remember their past memories. Colossus wakes up as an artist. Dazzler's a movie star. You have Havoc, who's now with the Magistrates. In Genosha, oh man, you talk about epic. And this is the reunion of reunions. See what I mean? Burgers. Let's have some burgers. Jean and Storm reconnecting again because they were best friends. And Jean was dead for a while. Storm was thought dead. And now here they are, a young Storm and an of-age Jean. Oh, man. I could talk about each and every single one of these freaking pages. Rain saying, oh, it must be nice to come back from the dead. Not everybody gets that. Of course, talking about her best friend, Doug Ramsey, who died in the Fall of the Mutants. Now, the Magistrates are making an attack here because in those issues of 235 to 237 of Uncanny X-Men, the X-Men were trying to liberate the nation of Genosha. Genosha has these slaves that the Gingineer or Gingineer, I always called him the Gingineer or Gengineer. Because I was like, oh, it's like an engineer, but Gene. But if it's Gene and engineer together, then it should be Gingineer. What the hell ever. And whatever that guy with the made-up word is, that guy can take the DNA of a young kid, somebody that's under the age of 12. And I think if you're tested to have the X factor in your genes by the age of 13, they can turn you into slaves and you become mutates. You no longer have a name, you have a number. Oh, man, that is dark. So the X-Men were trying to liberate them in those early issues. And the people of Genosha were like, no, this is our country. You don't have any say, which they didn't, but they were trying to do the right thing. So it starts this all-out war between Genosha and the United States. But instead of attacking the United States, they go right for the X-Men, capturing these characters right here. Warlock, Richter, Boom Boom, and Storm. Boom Boom officially now with the New Mutants, and of course, Wolfsbane. They're captured by none other than this character right here, and that is Cameron Hodge. Cameron Hodge was a character that was a good guy in X Factor, and then it turns out, oh, Warren, I'm sorry, I'm actually really evil. And does something to Candy Southern. You can find out in the next volume of X Factor Omnibus Volume 2, whenever that comes out. But there was a fight between Archangel and Cameron Hodge, and Archangel chops his head off. And the next time you see him is here. Now, you can find out why exactly, and it kind of makes sense when you read it all. There is a character known as Wipeout that works for the Genoshan government that can do exactly what his namesake is. Wipe out the powers of these mutants. So they're powerless when they're being captured and then being turned into mutates. So they're brainwashing them into, becoming slaves. Now, you can definitely tell the difference when different inkers ink Rob Liefeld. You have Joseph Rubinstein, and then you have like Art Thibert inking his stuff. There is a loss. One of the characters does die in the pages of the X-tinction Agenda, and now it's an all-out war. Now X Factor gets involved, and they're going to go to Genosha to free their friends. They don't know exactly how some of these friends have come back. Like, nobody really knows about Psylocke during this time. Betsy Braddock walked through the Siege Perilous and then walked out an assassin because of the Mandarin, the Acts of Vengeance, and now she's with Wolverine with her memories back. And this young kid, oh, I love this team up of Boom Boom and Jubilee, both of them having similar powers, both of them having similar attitudes. You have the Gingineer here with Moira McTaggart debating on, what are these rights that these mutates should have? Moira's like, they're slaves. And he's like, well, we need them because of our economy. Oh, man, just all these BS excuses. The mutants do end up escaping, of course, from the hands, or rather the claws or the arms of Cameron Hodge. And by this point, they are brainwashing Rain. And they're going to be reunited with, of course, the X Factor team, the team of Wolverine, Jubilee, and of Psylocke. And a lot of the characters are reuniting for the first time since they've walked through the Siege Perilous. I love this right here when this is Manali, not Trish Tilby, but she's a reporter reporting on what's going on in Genosha, how Genosha came in and captured the mutants, and how it's not legal to do that. But here we are interviewing people on the street. Of course, some of them, you can obviously tell who they are. A teacher, Roberto da Costa's father, a lawyer, this really smart guy, and then a Marvel editor, Suzanne Gaffney. I love that she makes an appearance. The only gripe I've ever had about this is Cyclops shaved his head to pretend to be a mutate, and then in the next issue, they took his powers away and it grew his hair back. How did that even happen? Storm's hair didn't grow that quick. Anyway, this fight between Archangel and Wolverine. So good. Oh, there's so many awesome moments here. Cameron Hodge puts his once best friend up in a fight between him and Wolverine. Oh, and it's so brutal and so badass. Eventually, Storm gets her age back and her powers back, and you can find out exactly with the comic book science explanation here. And then what ends up happening to the Gingineer and the Magistrates. And one of the actual Genoshan guards, of course, was Havoc. So during this time, Cyclops is like, hey, you're my brother. We should be working together and instead of fighting. So you can find out how X-tinction Agenda ends. And that leads into the all-new, all-different X-Factor. We have the Kings of Pain storyline, which I know I've talked about over and over. But it is the story of AIM trying to bring back Proteus through this kid named Piecemeal. And this is the character Harness. I always thought Harness had such a badass outfit. It is the crossover between X-Factor, the New Mutants, X-Men, and the New Warriors. And they even have all the backup stories of this right here. This is the Freedom Force, and what ends up happening to Freedom Force, like some of them get brutally killed against the Desert Sword team. And a lot of those characters died. This is the Kirk Jervin backup story. I love his artwork. I don't know what happened to this guy. I loved his art. And he never really blew up the way that I thought he was going to. He did appear in trading cards, or not he himself, but his art appeared in trading cards. Finally, for the first time, it's been available in a small trade paperback by Colossus God Country. This is by Innocenti, artwork here by Rick Leonardi, inks by P. Craig Russell. And it is the story during the time. Now, this is very, very important. They do tell you here, all the Marvel Comics Presents and everything collected for the rest of the book takes place from issues of Uncanny X-Men 238 to about 246. When they were in the Outback, when the world thought they were dead, and Colossus leaving the team for a little bit to come and take a break, coming back to America, taking a vacation in the Heartland, and then running into these group of just militants called the Cold Warriors, who were a covert organization to keeping everything pure. And you can find out what the hell that means by reading the story. I actually really like this story, and I'm so glad it is finally collected in a big format. We have the Pharaoh's Legacy story collected in here. Again, this one hasn't even been collected in trade paperback. So I'm glad these stories are finally here. There was a connection, of course, between Havoc and the Pharaoh, the Living Pharaoh, that goes back all the way to the Neil Adams and the Roy Thomas era of X-Men, when it was just X-Men, not Uncanny. But this is kind of the reincarnation of that character through this woman that calls herself Plasma. And there's a cult that's going around, and they end up kidnapping this lady named Layla O'Toole, and Havoc's trying to put a stop to it. And Wolverine actually ends up joining him for that particular story. And then we have Longshot. We have all these little just issues that have never been collected before. This is Sunfire. So this is a story that takes place in Japan. Between Sunfire and the Corruptor. And again, just 8 pages. We have some more stories of Freedom Force here. We have a story with Siren. This is drawn by Larry Stroman. And they do give credits, like when the cover's there, it's like a cover by Eric Larson right there. But this is by Dwight John Zimmerman, Rodney Ramos doing the drawings in here. And that is the reunion between Storm and Doctor Doom. We have a Gladiator story, the Marvel Superheroes Summer Special. This one here featuring Rogue. There's the X-Men right here, covers by Arthur Adams, against the Abominus, not Annihilation. and a Sentinel that you feel sorry for. Again, taking place in those Outback years. And you also have the story in here of the Christmas issue. This is from the Marvel Holiday Special, which that, of course, was drawn by Arthur Adams. And this takes place right before X-Men, or Uncanny X-Men 98, all those many years ago. And it's like hey, this is a retcon story, but it kind of works. We have Marvel Tales right here featuring, or this is the Marvel team-up, like backup story. And then for the first time ever, collected anywhere, is the X-Men spotlight on the Starjammers. And during this time, you have the character of course, Corsair leading the team, Hepzibah, and Lilandra, and I'll explain why. You have Raza right there, and Cod or Chod, I don't know how you all pronounce it. Kree, I know Kree, right? Is that how you pronounce it? Maybe. I'm not really sure. And this is all the story of how Lilandra ends up getting kidnapped by her sister. Professor X is still in a coma, and then when he awakens, it's like a weird, what? Almost feels like a what-if story. But it's how the Starjammers are trying to find this thing called the Falcon. PHLKON. And what it has to do with the Phoenix Force. And they have to get there before Deathbird does. The Imperial Guard gets involved. So you're going to see a lot of appearances here. And, of course, the return of Dave Cockrum, drawing the characters that he created with Chris Claremont. So a lot of the Imperial Guards, a lot of cosmic side of things, and then even Excalibur making an appearance through here. All the way in the back, we do have, it's the back matter, trade paperbacks, covers, house hats. This is what I wanted as the cover. But instead they went with the trade paperback cover. I've never seen this, I don't think. The Days of Future Present promotional art by Silvestri. Maybe I have. This, I would have loved underneath the dust jacket. Now, when the trade paperbacks came out, they were mapped differently. Like, it's when they were trying to get a hold of how collected editions should be done. So instead of, having blank pages, as you're going to see through here, to make these spread pages work, right? Because what they would do is add additional pages. So sometimes you have blank pages on the opposite side, or sometimes it's the X logo, and of course when I'm looking I can't find one in these collected editions. But back in the day they would actually draw additional stuff, like somebody trying to mimic Jim Lee style, somebody trying to mimic Rob Liefeld style. The designs right there for the Magistrate. And this is what I was talking about. So what they did here, they actually explained, Jim Lee and Scott Williams, for this reprint, Cable was replaced by an image of Cyclops created by splicing together art from 2 pages of X-Men #1. That's awesome. The only thing missing is those 2 pages. This is the trade paperback I can finally get rid of. I think it's from the 90s, mid-90s. Pin-ups here. Overstreet Price. And the... Oh, wait, I wonder why that wasn't full page right there. That is the Kings of Pain promotional art, hardcovers, and this is the second printing of those books, and then the hardcover, Days of Future Past. Your end sheets, let's look at the binding here. 984 pages, sewn binding, this one printed at the iMac printer. So what I wanted to do was come back to pages like this so you can see the kind of bleed through. Honestly, the paper stock is thicker than iMac used to be. And there's still bleed through, though. Not as bad as it used to be. We've seen better. We've seen worse. As a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's actually go back to the Days of Future Present. So we have clouds here, because I wanted to compare it to this over here. This is the printing from 2014. This is an oversized hardcover. And, of course, the paper stock feels thicker, right? 2014, this is 10 years ago. There's still a little bit of bleed through. Not as much as that. And this is the way the book lays over. So even the Donnelly printer does have a little bit of gutter loss, and so does this. So, yeah. Some less gutter loss here, because I've read the hell out of that book. And there is a little bit of gutter loss right there. You can tell by the lines on his nose right there. Now, comparing it to the 2011 oversized hardcover of X. I love this cover. I don't want to get rid of it, but I don't need it. Of the 2011 printing, and I wanted to come back to, honestly, the bleed through. This one also printed at the Donnelly printer. Really about the same in both. And then, of course, the way the book lays over. This one does have, I think, better binding than that Days of Future Past hardcover. But to kind of give you an idea, there's still a little bit of gutter loss right there. So what you're missing out of here, I've already explained, are those Wolverine Days of Future Past storylines that will be in Wolverine Omnibus 6. You're missing the Uncanny X-Men issues 235 to 238. Those are found in the Inferno Prologue Omnibus. So if you're a completist, you already have that, or will get Wolverine. If you're not getting Wolverine Omnibus Volume 6, the Days of Future Past Wolverine mini, not 100% necessary. This is old Joe Bennett artwork. But, you know, it's still fun to just fill in the blanks. The only thing I wish they had added was that Days of Future Past single issue backup story by Chris Claremont, and I think it was Salvador La Roca. But that's it. You all made this happen. I just suggested it, but you all voted for this, and it is finally here. X-Men Extinction Agenda Omnibus. And that, as they freaking say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. Let me know in the comments down below if you plan on picking this up. If you have the 2 hardcovers of Extinction Agenda and Days of Future Past, and you're like, I'll keep those. Yeah, I don't need them in omnibus format. I have them in deluxe edition. I get it. But if you're picking this up because of all those extra goodies, all those stories that have never been collected, either in trade paperback or in deluxe edition format. If you have any questions, leave them down below. And then, of course, what other X-Men era do you want Marvel to reprint in omnibus format? I did put Executioner's Song and Bishop's Crossing in the poll last year, and you all voted for that, so here's hoping. Any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button. Thank you all so much for being a huge part of this community. Much love to every one of you.